the darkness today, right?
Yeah. To put darkness into context, right? It is understanding that every major success that you're going to get in life, right? Whether it be success in physical attributes, going for a sport or trying to build your body, trying to do a nutrition program, business, relationships. Where you are right now is testament to your failures, right? And what we want to focus on today is explaining a process whereby you need to look at failures as a win. You need to look at the darkness that you've been through, the darkness you've come from, into the light. You need to look at it from an aspect of, this built who I am, and this is why I got to where I am.
I'm looking for an Arnold quote. I have to go back and do a little better searching here, but basically Arnold said something to the effect that your strength doesn't come from the good times, your strength comes from the dark times.
Yes.
Something to that effect. I'm going to see if I can find the actual quote.
And what that means is where you are today is a testament of where you've been. The struggles you've been through, the failures you've endured, the dark times, the bad times, however you want to frame this, those interactions that you've had lead you to where you are today. And one of the reasons that we want to highlight that today is when you start working on yourself on a personal level and you start raising your frequency to become the best version of yourself, whether it be in relationships, whether it be improving on your eating plans, going to the gym and trying to work on your body, working on your spirituality, what we tend to do is, especially with us as men, when we run that program and we fail, or we have a failure, it's not failure of the program, it's just we have a fail. We cheat on our diet, or we eat the wrong food, or we skip a day at the gym, or we snap at our wife, or we make an inconsistent decision that we immediately realize and regret. What we tend to do is we tend to live in that decision and beat ourselves up. We tell ourselves, well, I should have done better, I could have done better. And this goes back to previous episodes where whatever's happened in the past is done. You can't change it. You can't change the past. Yeah.
I found it. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. When you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is strength.
Yes.
It's a great quote.
It's not the failure it's not the failure that defines you. It's not giving up.
Yeah, because it's hard.
Yeah. So we want to, the real baseline of this is looking at the reasons where we beat ourselves up, right? The reasons that if I mess up, I want to sit and hit myself over the head with a stick, right? Because once you start on the path of improvement and you start realizing and you have that introspective sit down with yourself, there's a great idea which multiple intellectuals have had. The latest one would be Jordan Peterson, who kind of elaborated this. He said, any problem you have can be solved with sitting alone with your thoughts for 30 minutes to an hour. If you can, and realistically, very few people in the world are able to sit down with themselves and have a realistic quiet time. And when I say quiet, nothing around you. There's no TV, there's no cell phones, there's no people. It's you and your thoughts in quiet. For the first 15 to 25 minutes, your thoughts will go all over the place. And then what will happen is you'll hit a focal point. And all of a sudden, you will start listening. That little voice, the good little voice that always telling you where you should go and what you should do, the one that has the answers, it's going to get louder. And it's going to start talking to you. And it's going to start explaining to you exactly where you messed up and where you can improve. And with that comes the reason, at least my opinion of this, my reason I think a lot of people don't want to do this introspection is because that type of introspection is going to highlight the ugly parts about who you are that you might not like. And we all have them. You have them, I have them, everyone has them.
Yeah.
In order to be better, you have to look at who you are holistically. And you have to forgive yourself for the things that you don't like about yourself. And then you have to say, I want to be better. That is accepting failures, darkness, dark places you've been, bad habits, bad things you've done, and looking and going, I want to be a better human being, and taking accountability for what you've done and moving forward.
Own it.
right? Own it.
You know, I think about like my own journey because I've been through a lot. You've been through a lot too, but the word grace pops into my head, like versus. I just like the word grace because to me it is I think a more, what's the word? It's a softer approach to.
It's like, more refined.
Yeah, and I say that because I think we know people that are like this, but even my own situation, like you have this tendency when you wake up to your reality one day and you realize like, oh shit, I'm sitting in the middle of the darkness. Like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You immediately go into this evaluation mode of like all the things that you fucked up on.
Yes.
And that's the easy response, right? So you immediately go into just ripping yourself apart because that's what men do. That's why we're wired.
So a nice analogy of that is what you're doing is, as Kevin said, is you find yourself in the darkness. We've all been there. Mm-hmm. You go through what, and funny thing is, sometimes it's an exponential event that makes you realize where you are. Sometimes it's a slow process, but almost every single time it's this realization that it's like you wake up in the dark and then you have to evaluate, how the hell did I get here?
Well, I think I think men go through this, right? And there's things that are happening, like with us putting all this content out and information, we're getting more and more exposure to men's scenarios and things that they're experiencing. And we're being asked for input and help, right? And so I think what happens for a lot of people is it's like daily darkness events that you don't put a lot of effort into thinking about.
Yeah.
And then it becomes like repeated, and then significant.
Yes.
And the significant is when you realize, oh shit, I'm in the middle of the darkness. And for men, it's usually like pretty big deal. A lot of times it's relationships. Yeah. You know, it could be fitness related, but it's truly often relationship driven.
Yeah.
And then you wake up to what's going on.
Yeah.
And then you go into tear yourself down, destroy yourself on what happened and why you did whatever. Now, some people I think do take the opposite. Not everybody's going to do it that way. Some are going to go, it's your fault, and point the finger at everywhere else and not take ownership and accountability of themselves.
Which can happen, but I think a place we get stuck in is dwelling in that darkness. So now you figure out you're there. So now, instead of figuring out a plan to get out, because once you're in there, this is something that I think a lot of people are going to resonate who listens to this. When you find yourself in the darkness, we're talking about you found yourself at the absolute bottom, right? Your bottom is not my bottom, is not someone else's bottom. Right. Everyone's bottom of the barrel is different. But you've essentially hit the bottom, which has sparked your unconscious mind to go, what the hell is going on?
Right.
Ooh, I need to do something, right? So, but generally, you also have to realize you are at the bottom, right? Once you're there, it feels like pretty much like a hopeless pit, right? And what you can do is there's two options you have. It's literally two options. You can either sit and dwell, right, and stew in it, because that's what a lot of us do. We sit and we get in that dark situation and we fall into a victim mentality. We fall into a hopelessness mentality. We sit there, we dwell. We as you say, we rehash how we got here and we beat ourselves up. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done this. And we sit there.
When I went through some of my stuff, like I went back and looked at date stamps on text messages, on like videos and pictures and calls and conversations, and like, I mean, even like emails sent 10 years ago. Yeah. Like, I mean, I would like evaluate all kinds of stuff, like, you know, because you wanted an answer.
We're analytical by nature.
Right.
So what we want to do is we're analyzing this problem. And the thing is, we're analyzing it because the solution at that point, the outcome of getting out of the dark at that particular point feels so far away and so impossible. Foreign to us. It feels impossible. So what we do is we do the natural thing. We overanalyze. How did we get into this darkness? We overcompensate. We analyze to death. We structure everything.
We justify too. We make excuses and justify.
A lot of times,
in my case with fitness, I did.
Yeah,
you know, I blame my work.
And a good point in there is the things that usually trigger these darknesses is relationships, breakdown of relationships, breakdown of health, breakdown of wealth, right? And then general breakdown of physical, how you feel physically. So that'll fall into sickness, right? If you have a health issue. And as we dwell into this, and like you say, I might beat ourselves, or we might validate it. It could be one or the other. But what you're doing is you're stewing in the darkness, and you're sitting in that darkness, and you're allowing it to just roll over. It's like going to a psychiatrist, and they're rehashing the problem over and over, but they're never actually going to the root cause.
Right.
all of that happened, whether it's a relationship, whether it's physical, all of it is your accountability. You're the one who's responsible for it. But here's the kicker, and this is the part where you have to do a mind switch, and it takes a lot of work to do this, is once you hit the rock bottom, there's no further to fall.
Yep.
Right. At least from your aspect. If you've woken up, you're as far as you're going to go, because you're awake to it, and now you have the ability of action. Mm-hmm. The second factor of that is you have to take in consideration, what have I done to get here, and accept where you are. You can't dwell on the past, because what are going to happen is if you keep focusing on everything that's happened, all you're going to do is relive, and you're going to fall into depression. Mm-hmm. What you have to do is you have to acknowledge what's happened, take accountability, and then put yourself back in the present. I'm here.
I think I'm actually Sam said this to me yesterday, the day before. We did it. Well, I guess it was yesterday for the first time out loud to me, but with all the deep work that I've done. Like, she said to me as I left for the day, "Hey, positive vibes only." Positive vibes only. So that's a positive affirmation in my mind.
Yeah.
So I repeated it back to her, and then I actually did it to her today. I'm like, I'm going to start this as a trend.
Yes.
Because to me, like, my point of bringing that up is, okay, so you're in a bad place and you continue to tell yourself that you're a victim, or you make negative affirmations.
Yes.
You're going to stay there.
You're just going to keep
if you recognize where you're at and you say, like, I actually told someone that we're helping right now, you have to identify who I'm going to be.
Yes.
Okay? What's my target? Like, okay, Kevin's going to be this guy in a year.
Yeah.
Okay, but a year ago, I didn't believe it yet. But I made the affirmation and decided what I was going to become.
Yes.
And I worked on it every day, even though I didn't quite believe it just yet.
You're taking these small steps to get yourself out of there, but you don't completely believe where you're going.
I think back into my own journey is like, I woke up to reality of where I had a problem in my personal life. It was much more significant than I ever knew. And I don't want to say I didn't panic, but like, men tend to go into fixed mode on everything, right?
Yeah.
And so as a part of the journey, I had to recognize, like, I knew I was going to better myself, but I had to identify, like, who am I going to become? Who is that guy going to be? What's he going to look like in a year?
Yes.
I don't like goals, and I don't like focusing on results, because to me that sets you up for failure. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
So I have to, like, I think it's important to be careful about setting, like we've talked, we're going to go with setting targets.
Yeah.
So I'm going to constantly set targets, and the reason I like to use the analogy of targets is because if you imagine yourself on a battlefield shooting a target, you're going to always move forward on your objective.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm always, if I hit my 50-meter targets, keep hitting those 50-meter targets, I'm always moving forward on my objective to take it, right? So you have to believe, though, and you set building blocks along the way, and you create a process for yourself. You create I say process, that's probably not the right word, but like, you create a standard would be a better way.
Yeah.
You create a standard for yourself, and you believe through affirmations. There's so much that goes into this work.
Yeah. And it's very, there's a baseline of guidance that, that's part of what we give people. Mm-hmm. But in the same breath, there's a formulation. There's a couple of things that I feel like you have to fundamentally go through, right? Is once you find yourself and you wake up and you're in the darkness, the first thing that you really have to do is, without over-analyzing and beating yourself up, you have to take accountability for the fact that you led yourself to this.
That's right.
Right. Whether it's relationship, health, it doesn't matter. The minute you start blaming someone else for your position, you're already not taking action.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So the first thing is take accountability.
You're being a victim.
Right. Yeah. I've taken accountability for where I am. Now the next step I've got to do is, now that I've taken accountability, now I have to start with an action plan. And what we tend to do as men, right, and we see this a lot of, I've seen this in myself, Kevin's seen this, and we see this a lot of people that we help, is someone who wants to do something will so overly, especially if you're focused on it, you start getting a taste of digging yourself out, especially if you have a community that helps you.
Yeah.
What you tend to do is, you're so overly focused that you do too much, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to be very careful about taking very fundamentally well thought out steps being consistent, because you could be, if we're talking from a health aspect, right? From a health aspect, you could be in a really bad place, right? You haven't trained in 10 years. It's the first time that you can go back to a gym. You're going to go to a doctor. You're going to get your bloods taken, right? Some of those results may not resonate with you and may not be able to lead you to go into something quickly. You have to always you're taking accountability for where you are and how you got there. So part of taking that accountability is being honest with yourself about where I am.
Yeah.
So once you're honest with yourself, that may mean that an exercise program for you may be, first of all, just going for a walk, and getting your heart rate up, and then taking the next step. And that process could take you a year. I
think an example, okay, and what happens with people, let's use the fitness example. I like this. So you go to the doctor says, hey, there's something going on there. I want to take an x-ray or MRI or whatever blood work they got, whatever they got to do. And they say to you, I think it could be the C word, right? You get scared straight while you wait on the test. And so you start trying to do all the workouts, you start trying to eat right, change everything. And then the doctor comes back and says, nothing to be alarmed about. It's not the C word, but you do need to lose weight.
Yeah.
And then you go back, you realize, well, I'm not dying. So you go back to your old ways.
Yeah.
Okay. So then it takes an extreme diagnosis, I feel like sometimes, or an extreme situation for some people to get scared straight.
Yeah.
And then there's also the component of, well, something happens, whatever motivated a breakup with a girlfriend or a divorce or whatever, and you decide, I'm going to be back on the market again, so I'm going to be motivated, which is my least favorite word when it comes to health and wellness. I'm going to be motivated to go work out so that I can go get the girl or the guy or whatever it is I'm trying to do. And so for me, those are all methods of setting you up for failure because you haven't made the conscious choice yet to say, I'm tired of being in the dark.
Yeah, and a lot of the choice, so a good analogy of this is you will never see a man get into the best shape of his life as quick as he does after a breakup.
There you go.
Right. And part of that is, again, he's filling that void. So he's going to gym, he's filling up his time, he's finding a way to mask the pain. And, you know, we had a chat about this with a close friend recently. What you're doing is you're exchanging one pain for another pain. Right. Now, by all accounts, is great. Go hit the gym. It's good for you. However, what you're not doing is you're not analyzing the core reason that you're doing this, right? You're exchanging one thing for another. You're exchanging one addiction for another addiction, or one heartbreak for something that fills the hole or the void.
Right.
You have to reanalyze. This is where it becomes very important to do self-work, right? That when you sit down and you talk to yourself and you have that introspection and you figure out who you are, where you are, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Right.
And you accept who you are and say, you know what, I love myself for who I am right now. I'm going to be better. So those things that I know that I take accountability for, I'm going to move forward. When you move forward, your choice for taking on this action should not be a replacement of a heartbreak or a different hole, right? Because all you're doing is you're digging a different hole.
Yeah.
And what will happen is the amount of times I've seen guys get into an exercise program, get into phenomenal shape, and then they find the next girl, they get comfortable in a relationship, and they just let it go.
Yeah.
Right. So your reasoning for doing that is, so you had this phenomenal point of maybe a year while you were single, and you looked phenomenal,
right,
and you felt good, and then you just let it go because your reasoning for doing it was wrong.
Right.
Your reasoning was based on trying to fill holes and trying to fill pain instead of dealing with the baseline, which is you have to go down to the why.
Yeah.
Why do I truly want to do this? Now, other than the fact is we can talk in circles about why people want to get in shape, right? They want to get girls, they want to have muscle. Most things we do as human beings is because we want love. We want love and acceptance. So two things that really come in. Happiness kind of ties in, but love and acceptance give us happiness. And we'll go do things because we think they're going to provide us love and happiness.
Yeah.
But when you have the love and happiness, why are you doing it? Well, I heard a very interesting quote, right? And I'm going to repeat this on a video that I'll do in person, but everybody is willing to die for the people they love. They're willing to sacrifice themselves. I'm sure you will die for your family. I'll die for my wife, right? However, ask yourself this fundamental question. Are you willing to change your nutrition program for them? Are you willing to exercise for them? Are you willing to change your habits for them? Are you willing to change how you talk to them? Are you willing to change aspects of yourself to be a better person for them every day?
Yep.
And all of a sudden the conversation changes because it's easy to finally say, I'm going to die for my family. That's an easy
viral clip.
But when you start living for your family and living to be the best version of yourself, this is what makes the fundamental difference. And as individuals, when you're in that dark space, this is what your driving factor is. Yeah. Now, family is a very good segue to why to do it, because family is important, right? But essentially it goes back to the analogy is, in order to be your best self for your family, you have to put yourself first so that you can be the best version of yourself. That requires accountability, that requires an action plan, and requires strategic steps, knowing what your limitations are, always pushing them. Like I'm a big advocate for always trying to push your limits.
Yeah.
But push your limits smart, right? You're going to go into the gym and you're going to try and put 400 pounds on your back, you're going to hurt yourself.
Yep.
And you're going to say to yourself, well, I did it when I was 20. You're not 20 anymore.
No, you're not.
And even when you were 20, you were conditioned, you were trained, you had gone through a process. Look where you are. Start with walking around the block. Start with cutting out sugar. Yeah. Start with every time you speak to someone who's important in your life is think about how you speak to them. And would you want someone you love to speak to you like that? Put yourself, become empathetic to how you go. Exchange energy for energy. And when energy is negative, you be the better energy and you exude pride. You see someone in the parking lot and they swearing at everybody and they pull a bad face, smile at them.
You know, a word that comes to mind when you talk about that was all really good stuff in the message you had there about would you choose working out. That should be viral in my opinion. That's something every person in the world should hear. But attraction is the word that comes to mind when I hear you say all this stuff. Like I think, and I've experienced this where, okay, let's just use this topic. Where you're in a relationship for a long time. Okay, you're comfortable with one another. Okay, so it's easy. You know, men. I saw a video about men with their attraction goes slower downhill. Women, it goes more fast, right?
Yes.
Okay, so men are more willing to commit to a long-term relationship than a female. Okay, and females, we know they're way different. They're wired way different emotionally. Okay,
100%.
They're just way different than us as men.
Yeah.
So anyway, going back to this concept of attraction, I've done a lot of like diving into what that means, and we've experienced this with other men that we've been around. Men can be, and hear me out with this, like I can be attractive to another man.
Yes.
Okay, and attraction doesn't mean like sexual. It means
you're attracted to the energy.
I have good positive energy, so you become attracted to this guy's energy because like what is that dude putting out?
Yeah.
What draws people to him? Why do people want to be around that? Yeah. And I say it to show you, are you that guy?
Yes.
Or girl? So I think I'm more talking to the men here, to be honest. When you walk into a room, what energy do you put out? Are you attractive for the room? Do they want to be around you? Do they want to hear what you have to say? Do they pursue you, or do you have to pursue them? Are you the one being listened to, or are you the one listening? I think that attraction is a very important thing or concept for everyone to understand, because when I go home, so if you think about this, like one of the things I've been good at in my career, I was attractive to people that I was associated with in my career.
Yes. I
would go home and that attraction went away.
Yeah.
So if I could go to work and give everybody my best and become this attractive person at work, why couldn't I be an attractive person at home?
Yeah.
Well, because I had the role flipped upside down. Oh. Yeah, there's a lot to this stuff.
Yeah, but you make a good point, because as men, we're driven into the provider standpoint, right? So yeah, I'm working a hard day.
You should be appreciative.
And when I'm going home, I can do whatever hell I want, and you must just be there for me. And in one sense, yes, you did put a hard day's work in, right? Yeah, you're providing for your family. However, who are the most important people in your life? Are the most important people in your life the people that you spent the whole day at work with?
Right.
Yeah, they're important. It might be the method of providing, but that's a method. The people that I do all the shit I do for are the people at home.
That's right.
I don't do it for the people at work.
That's right.
Those people at home, my wife, is the reason that I work hard. So what happens is, and my wife said this, and she makes a great point, and I agree with her. Why should she get secondhand scraps? She shouldn't.
I've done the same.
You should be your best when you get home to your wife. Now, here's the thing is, I understand you're tired. I understand you put in a hard day. We all do, right? However, that is not on her. That is on you. She is not your she is not the sack that you beat on because you had a hard day. If you cannot deal with that shit, don't get married.
Yeah, 100%.
You are responsible to get home and give your wife her absolute best. I went through a realization. So
same.
My wife, when I was younger, and my wife would come to me and say she wants to go do something. Right? I want to. Can we stop here and check this out? Right. And my immediate reaction, without thinking, without really realizing what I was doing, I always said to her, no, we'll go tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. Never happens. Right. And I made a conscious choice a few years ago, and sitting and going, I am going to stop saying no. And when my wife says she wants to do something, I'm going to go. Because the reason I was stopping was like, I'd convince myself, I'm tired. I'm not in the mood. I don't want to do this. And I just stopped doing that. And I said to myself is, when my wife says,
and how long until she stopped asking?
That's the thing is, right? So eventually she's like, I want to ask you, don't want to do anything.
Exactly.
Right? Like you never want to go. So I just assume you're not going anywhere. Right. So what I did was I changed the way that I adapted it. So in order to gain her trust, because I had broken the trust, in order to gain the trust back for a period of time, I said, in the middle, let's stop here and look at this. Let's try that. Let's do this. Let's do that. Right. And then eventually she realized, and then when she says, my wife says she wants to do something now, unless there's something pressing that I have to go do. Right. I've got work to do. There's something that really requires your attention that I don't have the time to do it, obviously.
Yeah.
But if I do, it's an absolute yes every single time, because she is fundamentally one of the main reasons that I work hard. This is why I'm providing. I want my interaction with my wife to be amazing. And part of digging yourself out of the darkness and getting to those spots is I had to deal with my darkest parts of my psyches, which may have, if I didn't recorrect my path, I could have led myself into a very dark place where I might not have my wife in my life anymore, because I'd driven her away through these simple, small actions that I felt were inconsequential. You must just, I don't feel like it today because I'm tired and I worked hard. Bullshit.
Right.
We all work hard.
That's right.
Right. Gain your energy. And this goes back in that dark place. You want energy, get your blood work done. If you have to get on TRT, get on TRT.
Yeah.
Start a supplement regime.
Yeah.
Start walking around the block. Start figuring out ways of how to make yourself abundantly full of energy. And part of being full of energy is also, like, as you say, you wake up in the morning and you establish your day is going to be your day. This is going to be my day. I am grateful. Gratitude is a big one.
Yes.
I woke up today. Look at where I am. I'm going to make the most of this day.
Yes.
Taking active steps from that point on and making that day the best. Now, when you're in that darkness, it seems impossible, but everything seems impossible until you make it possible.
Well, I think about examples of people that I've known in my past. I don't necessarily have anybody in my life directly right now like this, but where that victim mindset allows them to say, like, if you wake up late, you immediately start with, I woke up late today. Oh, I forgot to set the coffee. The coffee didn't brew.
You set your day up.
And, then they go from place to place and it's just woe is me on everything. They're constant, like, the energy is just negative. It's toxic. Everything happens to me. Everything, is like out to get me. And I think that's a choice.
It's 100% a choice.
Because we all have, in business, you're solving problems. Okay. Ultimately, business is about solving problems, whether it's for yourself or someone else, or even in your own business, things come up, right? So you have to look at it as, well, if you have customers, guess what? You get to solve problems because you have customer, you're getting paid. It's a good thing. So it's about perspective, because we can all sit back and account for all the bad things, right? And I think another component of how to dig out of the hole, sometimes, like you were talking earlier, and I was thinking about this, where sometimes it's okay to, like, and I had to do this through my own journey, I had to just pause. And it's really hard because you just want to go into fix mode. Highly successful people just go, when they're in a bad spot, they go into fix mode.
We're naturally fixers, so that's all we want to do. We just want to repair.
But I thought about, like, this when you were talking earlier. A great place to sit in it is in nature. Like, leave the phone behind. I know Florida, you could go to the beach. If you're out west, you can go to the mountains, or even up in the Carolinas.
Dude, there's tons of parks just around us right now.
Even
there's
parks.
Always somewhere you can
go. Go a place where you can truly, take your shoes off. Like, ground yourself in the sand or whatever
be in the
is
sun.
in your be in the sun. Like, listen to the ocean. Like, get to a place that's private, that's serene. There's the springs up in Ocala area.
Yeah.
There's so many different places that you could go to just be out in nature.
Wake up in the morning, grab your coffee, take a walk outside with your bare feet, walk into the grass, watch the sunrise.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't take it for granted. It happens every single day. And it's
at
a
the
way,
beach, like you could see the sun set at the beach.
But even without having to leave your house, right? Even if you stay in a condo building usually has a little garden at the bottom. Take a cup of coffee, go down the elevator, walk out the door, take a seat, put your feet down, watch the sunrise. You can do it anywhere. You can do it every day. That establishes that first start of the day. You know, sunlight hitting your eyes. It establishes the wake up of your body, exuding positive energy, saying, today I'm going to make this my day. Now, the thing is, in the beginning, you might not believe it. As you said, you know, when you start these journeys, you don't believe where you're going to go. Right. So, you know, it's
hard to see it.
It's hard to see it, right? But fake it till you make it. Like, say these things, because as much as you might not believe it, when you say words, your unconscious mind absorbs it.
Believe it.
And absorbs, and it creates a cycle, and that cycle will establish your day. I had a great conversation with Adam, who's with us in the BNI, and Adam was saying, like, what he started doing recently is he started establishing his days by saying and starting positively, no matter how he feels. And he says, if I don't do that, my day is ruined. Joe Rogan speaks on his podcast. He says, listen, I get up in the morning, I go do my workout, I sauna, I cold plunge, and then I'm good. My day is set. You know, I think of days when I get up in the morning, I do a cardio session, right? I hate cardio. I hate cardio, but I've also learned
people don't like it.
Most things that you don't like in life that yield positive results are the ones that are going to yield the most results.
No doubt.
So you go in and you do it, but I can tell you when you do these things on a constant basis, you feel different. So if you're in that dark spot, start with one thing. And there's so many things, as you said, grounding, seeing the sunlight, positive affirmations, surround yourself with people who have good energy, be the good energy. Even if you feel like crap, smile. Smile. Walk into places, smile at people, start conversations, feed off energy, feed energy back. We live in a world where human beings react. I think it's a 97% ratio of smile to smile ratio, right? It changes the room.
Yeah.
Be that person, right? Now, in the beginning, these things are going to be a little bit more difficult because you're digging yourself out of a hole, and that hole could be financial, it could be relational, and it comes with a lot of pain.
It does.
Right? But own it.
Well, I think about even just like walking through the register yesterday. I think it was yesterday. I get into conversations with people at the register often lately, as of the past year, because I've become approachable, or like I've had some negative responses come my way with the register people, and I flip it on them really fast.
100%.
And redirect their energy, if you will, because to me that's my opportunity to spread positive energy, and then it goes back to attraction again. They might be attracted to that conversation, and I may have changed something in them just for that moment in time, that they walk away from that and go, man, that guy really said something that resonated with me.
Moments in time, right, of positive good energy can have a massive impact on how people perceive their world.
100%.
And two things is, as you said, approachability, smile, and make eye contact.
Yes.
Right? Especially with our younger generation, especially the generation, anyone born after the year 2000. Because of the advent of these wonderful little devices here, you're so stuck in looking at your phone all the time that you don't really realize what the world is out there. And what happens is we lost eye contact.
Yeah.
You know, and Helene talks about this within the hypnosis and NLP range, right? And it's a very interesting concept, because when you put it into practice, you kind of realize that it's true. So when you look down on your phone, right, and you're looking down, negative thoughts can throw you out. So if you sit down, and if you're at home, listen to what I'm saying. Look down and think of a negative thought, like think of bad things, and it'll come easy, right? Now what you do is look up, lift your head up, look at the sky, and try and have a bad thought. What happens is when you look up, your sympathetic nerve system, right, gets triggered, right? Your parasympathetic nervous system gets triggered. Parasympathetic nervous system.
Some smart word.
Right, some really smart word.
Yeah.
Now, when you do that, it triggers that nervous system, and all of a sudden, negative emotions and negative thought and anxiety disappear because of and it's a physiological effect. Now, when you're spending 90% of your day looking down on a phone, what happens is, because that nerve shut off and you don't activate it, it floods your system with negative thoughts and negative emotions. Now that's combined with all the crap you see on social media.
I mean, I did this today, actually. I had been in front of my desk for like a good, probably, I feel like it was close to 3 straight hours working on a specific task.
Yeah.
It was causing me some trouble, so it caused me longer. I was like, I got to go take a walk. So I stood up and walked outside and took a good 10-minute walk and came back inside because I needed some sunlight. And I was back to being productive again. Yeah, totally.
And that's a good analogy here. So when you're in that darkness, is what we're essentially saying is there is a garage, massive garage, an Amazon garage, so full of tools. And as we say, a lot of times, I always talk about the analogies that you hear about, and we can call them hippie analogies. Those things that you think hippie people used to say. Be positive, smile. And you're like, that's crap. Mm-hmm. It's not crap. That stuff is real.
It is real.
Right? It lives it in your day. So applying these on a small level, and I'm saying don't apply all at once, but take a couple that resonate with you. Start applying them in the darkness. And start changing your behaviors on a small scale, a bigger scale, moving in. What you'll eventually find is if you're consistent, and again, consistency is key to everything.
It is.
If you're consistent in this and your resolve is always based on, I want to be better, not about an outcome.
I'm going to share the formula. I've put something like this a couple different times in terms of the formula, right? Mm-hmm. It is, where did you go? Good habits plus consistent action plus time times compounding interest equals sustained progress.
Yes, that is greatly put out. That is exactly how it is.
I'm going to screenshot that because that's something I typed to someone we're helping right now. So in the end, here's some thoughts I have around this whole topic, okay? Every human being at some point in time is going to find themselves in a bad spot. Yes. A place that they don't want to be, referred to by us as the darkness, okay? But you should be inquisitive along the way. And what allowed me to open up my eyes to a lot was first, when something that I did, a behavior that I put out that I didn't like in me, and as a veteran who's had issues, and I won't explain all that, but as a veteran who's you can fill in the blanks for yourself. When anger would come out, let's say when the anger would come out, I'd be like, what happened?
Yeah.
What was that about? I didn't like that behavior. I would feel like shit about it. I would reflect on it. I would, eventually apologize for my behavior to those that I hurt. But I would just I didn't like that side of me. I just didn't like it. I was like, that wasn't me in the past. Like, what happened? But what I would do is I'd be on this quest of wanting to go back to being the person that I used to be. Mm-hmm. But that's not possible.
No.
Because you're evolving, right? You're growing. And so you find yourself doing something that you don't like. And then you're wanting to go back to be, most of us would probably say I wish I was 20 something again. Not me. I like where I'm at. I think I'm in a great place. But what I can do is I can say, what are characteristics of 20 something Kevin that I would like to bring into today?
Yes.
What are some characteristics of that young guy that made him who he was, that made him attractive to his wife, that made him attractive to other people, that made him likable to other people? What are some characteristics of him? Okay, let's lean on that.
Yeah.
And now let's say, and there's so much deep work that goes into all this. And I love your Amazon analogy because it's true. You could go to all these different things. We often get asked of hey, I need help. What do I do?
Yeah.
Well, that's a loaded question.
Yes.
What do you need help with? Where are you trying to go? What are you trying to accomplish? There's so many different things and angles and things that we can offer you many suggestions, but you have to more clarify to us where you are in your journey and where you're at. And then along the way, and I thought you were going to say this earlier, I think we got away from it just a bit. One person we're helping, okay, you can't make up a workout.
No.
You can't make up a meal plan missed. You can't make up things that you should have done in the past that you haven't done.
Yes.
Don't try to cram it all in. Okay, that's why we're talking about the process as being so important when it comes. We use health and fitness. So you miss some workouts of the last decade of your life. Well, you're not going to fit 10 years worth of workouts into a week or a month or a year. I'm going to do something every day. I'm going to follow my meal plan every day. I'm going to do my daily habits, whatever your habits that you've identified are. But you're not going to be able to go 3-day workouts and get where you want to get, or the results you want to get, you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah, you're gonna have diminishing returns in a very short span of time, and physicality. So if you go and enact a workout, right, which I'd say for anybody, you know, at most 2 hours a day, anything over that, you're either not training hard enough or you're counterproductive, right? And then where the real growth happens is what you do after the workout, what meals you eat, how consistent you are, and then how much rest you get. Real growth happens in rest. Real spiritual and emotional growth happens in reflection. Right? It's the time that you sit down and you reflect on what you've done. So, you know, it's don't overanalyze. Don't become, you know, don't fall into analysis paralysis. Because what we tend to do is we overanalyze, and then what happens is we want to overcompensate. Because I want to get there quicker. Now here's the kicker, right? As weird as this sounds, is you could have 10 years of bad diet, bad exercise, bad health, right? And technically you could fix most, unless there's a chronic illness, you know, something that's diagnosed as a problem. But generally, you can fix that to the largest degree in stages within a year, right? So 10 years of bullshit, 10 years of not treating yourself right, eating crap, could take you as little as 6 months or as much as a year. So you're going to fix 10 years in a year. Now just think about that. But what happens is people want to fix, it's an analogy I saw in a meme the other day, right? I'm having a discussion with the guy in the gym, and he tells me it took him 10 years to look like that, but I want to look like that by Saturday. And you're like, and this is the analogy I'm making. Like, I know what you want to get to, right? But think of how much you've done to yourself in this period of time. And you see this online with people who are grossly obese, right? There's a couple of guys that I've seen do amazing things, right? And what they'll do is, it didn't take him a year to become 400 pounds. This is a lifetime of abuse, right? So now he weighs 400 pounds. Now he gets to the dark place and he goes, I am going to make a change. And you watch these guys, and there's some really motivating guys in there, right? He's 400 pounds, he can barely move, and he starts. And 6 months in, 10 months in, 1 year. Some of these guys are 2 years, right? Because you're talking about a lifetime of abuse.
Well, I hate some of the influencers you see out there are posting these 90-day transformations. Like, I'm not saying those aren't real transformations, but I feel like those are very few and far between of actuality, of like
context. Context is important, right? So let me phrase this out, right? And this is important for everyone to listen to. If you are starting a 90-day challenge, right, and this is primarily for men, women is a completely different ballgame, right? So let's say you're doing a 90-day challenge. You can fundamentally change a lot in 90 days,
definitely.
Right? That's 3 months. You can do a lot in 90 days. Now, however, it depends on where your start point is. If I'm starting with generally good health, good blood work numbers, I might not have trained as much, but I did some. So I did a little bit of. So I'm not completely out. I'm not so out of shape that I've never walked or anything. So we're talking about, let's say, a guy in a situation. I'd say you'd fit into the situation, right? If we took Kevin 2 years ago, right, in the middle of corporate, just digging yourself out, and I took you there because you were in generally good health. Right, you had a base understanding. You've trained before, so you understand it. So you were active when you were in school. So your body already has kind of a bit of muscle memory. If you've never trained before, it becomes exponentially harder. And I put you on a 90-day program, and you're super strict. Dude, you will not recognize yourself after 90 days. However, that's a 90-day program. Now, here's the kicker where those 90-day programs can turn on you. It's the same reason the word diet sucks. Is those 90-day programs never have a realistic afterwards, because in order to get yourself in shape in 90 days, you are going to work your ass off. You are going to eat a very big calorie deficit. You are going to be in a hard place. You are going to struggle, right? But you can do it. How do you maintain now? You don't, because what happens is after that, right, is most people go, I'm doing a 90-day challenge. They hit their goal, as they say, they hit the goal. And now what happens is they've hit their goal. Now they just go back to what they perceived as normal. But what you perceived as normal got you in the problem, or got you to the space you didn't like in the first place.
I think that's why with obese people that do the gastric bypass, and I don't know a lot about gastric bypass, I know people that have had it, and a lot of them put the weight back on. And in my eyes, it's if you have a surgery like that, well, you got overweight like you did for a reason. And a lot of people, at least those that I've known, when I hear them talk about, well, I just can't lose it, it's genetics, it's my DNA, whatever, if you really break it down, no, it's not. It's that you have your eating habits are negative. They're habitual. They're toxic in nature versus good quality nutritional choices. And then, of course, working exercise into this. So if you never fix what's broken to begin with, putting a Band-Aid or a simple solution to something is never going to be the long-term solution.
This is my massive problem with anything pharmaceutical, right? Because there's places, TRT is pharmaceutical, but TRT has a place because our society has become so toxic in the way that we live that you now have to find supplementation to extend. So there's an extension of life, but there's negative side. Like I said, if you're going to be stupid and take 5 times more TRT than you need, you're getting a negative effects from it, right? So there's diminishing productivity on certain things. But a gastric bypass, you are literally cutting out a piece of a very vital organ in your body because you can't control what you put in your mouth. Now, for a lot of people who have a lifetime, so I always explain to people, and this is my opinion on this. When you're a child, right? If you see an obese child, they have until the age or till they hit puberty. If they are still obese and have not corrected that action and they hit puberty in it, it becomes a lifetime problem. It becomes very difficult to change. And you can, you've got a celebrity like Ethan Suplee. Ethan Suplee, he was in so many movies. Massive fat guy, right? I think.
I know you're talking about. He was he was the big football player that was in Remember the Titans.
There you go. Yeah. Right. Now, Ethan Suplee he looks incredible, right? But what he's done is when you read his book and go through his journey, he figured out ways, and he said for years it was like this, like he'd lose, he'd pick back up. He finally hit a mental state where he found what worked for him and found that mechanisms to keep it going. And he's super motivating in the way he did it. But now, he didn't do a gastric bypass. This is a guy who will tell you, I tried so many different things.
Sure.
But gastric bypass surgery this is super invasive. I know people who died on the table doing gastric bypass. And then over that is I've met, I wouldn't say, I find myself lucky that I was once invited to a group of people for business. And it was a group of people who essentially celebrate the fact that they all had gastric bypass surgery.
Oof.
Right. And I sat down with these guys and we had a chat and it had nothing to do with health or fitness. It had to do with a different business I was running. But what I noticed in sitting down with them is, here's the things that didn't change. They still ate crap. They still didn't look after themselves. All that happened now is because their body can't take the amount of nutrients.
It's not eating as much.
Right. So they all lost weight. Right. But the problem is that you didn't lose weight because you improved how your body uses fuel. All you've done is you forced your body to not be able to take as much fuel. Right, and that in itself is such a dangerous road to take. It's the same as you're starting to see so many more celebrities have side effects from Ozempic, right? And Ozempic isn't a celebrity thing. You there's literally an underground market of housewives
who will, the weight loss drug.
Who will fight each other to get on Ozempic because it's a magic pill, right? I take it, I go, but the side effects of it is so dramatic. But with that said, there's 2 aspects to this, and this goes for men too. There was a recent image that was sent out, I think it was on X, and I don't know the exact celebrity's name, but I'm going to explain in context what this was. They had picture A and picture B. So this was a guy, I would say, on the lower end of a dad body. He's not completely out of shape, but he's not a Greek god, right? He doesn't have abs. He's just a regular guy, right? Who looks like he kind of works out a little bit. So nothing bad. Yeah. Okay. And then next to that, we had this same guy after whatever time he did, and he's shredded. Like he's down to like 5 or 6% body fat. He looks fantastic. They ran a survey, right? Now this survey was super interesting to me because I wanted to get that. I wanted to understand why these answers were coming, and I wanted honest answers from other people. So this kind of digs down into the darkness and kind of explains the psyche of people. So they ran a survey. Men, do you prefer the first picture A, before he was in shape according to us, or picture B? Women, do you prefer picture A or picture B? Right. 70-80% of men said they want A. They want B. The guy in shape said 5% body fat. And then on the flip side, more women said they prefer the guy who was out of shape, quote, out of shape. I don't say he was out of shape, but he wasn't in the same shape, versus the first one. And this was intriguing to me because what happened is it caused an online stir where men were saying that the women are lying. Like, why are they saying that? And I found it very interesting because, again, I can't speak for women. So I went to my wife and went to a couple of women and said, listen, I want to ask your opinion on this. here's picture A and here's picture B. What should you prefer? And every single one of them said picture B, where he's 5% body fat in shape. And my wife, being someone who understands female psyche, works in hypnosis, NLP, understands the unconscious mind and how people work. I said to her, why do you think women said they prefer A? Her answer blew me away. Most of the women chose A because it's not a reflection of who he is, but a reflection of who they don't want to work to be. It had nothing to do with him. It had to do with them.
Yeah, I believe that.
Because
it's interesting.
Then when you break down the data statistics, United States, I think we're sitting on 48 to 55% of people are obese. Right now, I don't buy into the BMI marketplace, but I mean, you walk to the general place in Florida, and most people are fat. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat this.
Or just at the beach, man. Right. Everybody at the beach is overweight.
Right. So they're fat. So now, just on that survey, you can assume that 50% of the people there are obese.
Yeah.
You can then also assume that an extra 30% are out of weight. So now, by a woman choosing guy B, is he going to make me work out? Do I want a guy like that, or do I never want to do the work? So it's an accountability. So
they're going to feel bad about themselves if they're not looking. Yeah.
So Helene's answer to this was like really interesting. She's like, they are lying. I said, she said straight. She says, I agree with the guys. I think they're lying. And I say the reason I think they're lying is because they're looking at the image not as him, but as them, and they don't want to be held accountable for what they don't want to do.
Well, I'll make that point. Okay, or drive that point further home. When you met your spouse, okay, whether man or woman, like, and you went through the courting process, the dating process, you were both attracted to one another, and you were, quote, in theory, at your best.
Yeah.
And then when you decide to get married, and you, like, how many people get married and go on a diet to get themselves in shape or whatever, so that the wedding day they're fantastic,
look amazing for the photos,
look amazing for the photos, etc. Right? Okay, so here's the point. If you do all that to attract and secure the spouse, well, then years later in the marriage, and I was guilty of this, going through the corporate world, she doesn't like the person you've become. She's accepted it because it's just it's their reality.
Yeah,
she's not gonna be mad at you because you go to the gym and train and get themselves in shape.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, if that's not a priority for your spouse, well, then positively influence them there. Understand their situation, help them through it.
And
don't come at them and lecture at them.
And you're right. But I want to be very clear on something. This has got nothing to do with looking a certain way.
Agreed.
Right? This is purely health and wellness.
Agreed.
Right? Because, again, when you go to a gym, men, by nature, have lower body fat than women.
Yeah,
right.
They do.
It's just by nature.
Yeah, I saw a female bodybuilder that was, she looked jacked, man. She looked awesome. She was, showed a picture of her, like, before at like 24% body fat, and then one at 16% body fat. Both of them, she was very fat.
She looked great. Yeah, she looks great, right? Amazed. So women's body fat levels are different, and women to drop body fat is exponentially hard because they're designed to hold fat, because they're designed to produce babies. Right. Like that's their function biologically, right? Mm-hmm. So it becomes exponentially harder for a woman to lose fat. But the interesting take on this in society, and how this sticks back into the darkness, right, is go have a look at Greek statues, Roman Greek statues that were made and developed thousands of years ago, before we had the analogy of what society deems to be the perfect body. Mm-hmm. It's been skewed by sales.
Yep.
And if you go back and you have a look in society, and you go look at Greek, I mean, I spent time, we went to Rome, we were in Paris, we went to the Louvre. Like, I've been lucky enough to see some ancient artwork, mm-hmm. right? The men are all muscular as hell. The guys are jacked, dude. Biceps, calves, like every muscle that a man can have. So now they had to get that from somewhere. So that was the exception of what they saw as a good man then.
Right.
All the women, right? If I took the woman based on all of those, the paintings, everyone, and you took the woman, put it there, everyone's going to say that's a fat, obese woman. But they're not. They're holding fat naturally where they're supposed to. Mm-hmm. And that was the exponential of what a woman should look like. And what's happened in our society, and not as much with men. Men, dude, a girl who holds a little bit more fat than a pretty girl's a pretty girl.
Right.
Men, honestly, men might vary in their taste, but honestly, men don't care. Right. Women care, though, because they've been branded by the system. The system has told them that you've got to be super skinny. This is a model. You've got to fit in to sell products.
Well,
but I want to draw the line. But that doesn't mean there's a distinction here. That doesn't mean I don't fall into the garden going where this massively obese woman, fall and say, no, well, we should be taken care of. No. I'm talking about a healthy woman taking care of herself has a much higher body fat percentage than a healthy man.
Yeah.
Right. They look different. They carry fat differently.
Yeah.
We also need to accept that that's part of who we are, but there's a distinction to draw.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you should, like, there's unhealthy and there's healthy.
Yeah.
Right. That's the distinction I'm talking about. So when you go in and you're going to the gym and you're going to be better, right, you're doing it, the real and better reason for longevity is to do it for health.
Well, and I think about, like, a message that I got where, again, somebody we're helping was able to do more physical activity with their kids. There's that component of this, right? So, 100%. Like, just in general, like, being healthy, being active, being, like, moving your body. And I saw a video on the gram of a guy talking about, basically, he asked the other guy, I'm going to replicate this a little bit, like, when's the last time you tripped and fell to the ground? I'm asking you, like, when's the last time you tripped and fell to the ground?
Honestly, I can't remember. I don't think it's...
haven't.
I have, but if I'm talking about, like, it's uncontrollable falling, or, like, nothing that I could control. Like, no.
Yeah, but, like, have you stumbled even recently? Like, you missed a step even? Like, but why is that? Because you're confident in your feet, right?
I'd say yes, confident, but why am I confident? I'm confident because I train to be.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like, so the idea, like, when you age, you get older, and we talk about legs and grip is the big thing as you age. What happens in the elderly population? And we've talked about this in other episodes. Yeah. Slip, trips, and falls are big, right?
Biggest death in elderly is slips and falls.
My mother-in-law, she's prone to fall. Like, she's had some pretty significant things happen because of a fall, and of course, it's scary, right? For when that happens. But my point is that's not something we are consumed with or concerned about, because we train and we keep our bodies active. So if nothing else, like, if you want to age well, don't ever stop moving.
No.
And when you see those that don't stop, they do stop moving, and the way they age, it's horrible in some regards, because they can't do anything. It's very difficult for them to get up and move place to place, and I don't ever want to have to be that.
Well, I take what we do, right? So we do levels of very dynamic training, right? And one of the workouts that I did yesterday is, all it was and I mean, from anyone looking at me in the gym, I probably look like an idiot, right? I don't really care what they think, but what I'm doing is I'm doing skip jumps, and I'm doing wide step sprints, and I'm lifting my legs up. What I'm doing is I'm working mobility. Why is this important? Because think of it in this sense, right? If I walk up to you, right, and I push you hard, right, push you so hard that you're going to fall, right? Most people's reaction when they fall is to do what? Put their hand behind their back. The quickest way you're going to break your arm. However, through the training we do and kind of running the process, what you realize is that the biggest impact protection you have is your back.
Right.
So what you would do is, if I push you, you tuck in, put your chin in, take the fall onto your back, flip straight over onto your feet.
Get right back up.
Right back up immediately. Right. Now, these are the things they'll teach you in judo, jiu-jitsu, any type of MMA, to quickly get back to your feet, right? But as we age, we kind of forget this, because we used to play as kids. And as we get older, we stop playing. And when we stop playing, we stop doing these actions which are really important to stop slips and falls.
Right.
So, when you're sitting in the darkness and you have, maybe you're sitting and you have injuries, right? Maybe you've had a hip replaced. Maybe you had a knee replaced. Maybe you've got a niggling injury that's been bugging your whole life. It could be a shoulder. It could be a spine. It could be anything, right? It might have fused discs. Everything you have, there is some sort of exercise program that you can apply to that to get you to a better state, right? Whether it be yoga, whether it be jiu-jitsu, it doesn't really matter. We're a gym program that kind of starts getting you there. But once you get there, what you do is then now you work on longevity and you keep improving. So if you're sitting in the darkness and you don't know what to do, as you've said multiple times, get out and have a walk, right? Do that consistently for a week. Then what you do is you start adding on. Maybe get a vest, add a weighted vest, add weight to it. And now you feel like you're feeling like you can walk this comfortably. Now you go to the gym. Now you start a weight training program. Now you start doing things.
I think it's important for anybody to grow, right? Like, if everything in your world is just constantly hunky-dory, like, is it? And maybe you've put in a lot of the work, but the reality is, like, you're going to experience something tough. You're going to experience, like, pushback, even when things go well. People that I've looked up to and followed have really uncovered and fixed a lot of stuff. Like, and we're going through stuff. Like, there's always something that we're working to get better at. you have peaks and valleys. You know, you have extreme highs, you have extreme lows. But I think the important thing is that as you navigate this and you really start to unpack, and I was recently asked to help someone, and when asked, like, hey, I need help, I usually follow it up with questions, right? I need to identify like where you are in your journey, because I can't just give you the vomit on the table of everything that you should do, because it's not
so much.
Yeah, it's not possible to do everything, right? So it's building blocks, and it's being inquisitive and wondering, if I do this, or reading I like to read, I like to podcast, I like listening to podcasts, I like hearing other people's experiences. I think that's a great teacher. But you have to start somewhere, and then it's about taking what you can take on. You know, like we talked about, you can't cram in another workout. You have to, embrace the process. Well, it's the same thing with all this. You know, maybe I've done a combination of talk therapy. I've done the hypnosis therapy. I've done, brotherhood, therapy, if you will, like where you're talking to friends. I think that's an important nature of this too. Like, we should talk about this in this episode real quick I carry a belief, and I've talked to many strong men that carry the same belief. I think you and I agree on this. Women aren't capable of receiving men's crazy. So like when you and I have talked business, or we get stressed about business, I think I know my home situation's improved when I've given my crazy thoughts to you instead of my wife.
Yes,
it's way better.
Having fellow men that you can bounce off, because what it is it's not a bitching session. What it is it's a sharing of ideas, because we all go through we all go through very similar struggles when it comes to our wives. And you can see it on social media. Social media has these really funny videos where guys highlight the things that women do, and the amount of times I resonate with these guys making the go, that's exactly what my wife does. And having a community of guys where you can and it's not even that, it's everything that we can bounce off, because it allows us to share experiences with other men who are going through exactly the same thing you're going through, and then bounce those ideas off each other, because it's important to have that aspect. Well,
women, I think I think every marriage and relationship, regardless of whether or not it's a career woman or not, I think in this day and age, like men and women are all career people, because they have to be, right?
Yeah.
I think the men is responsible to lead his family. Okay, this is how I see it. I think it's a partnership. I think it's the two working together.
Yeah.
But that word partnership is where men go wrong sometimes. And we think that when we come home, well, she's my partner. She should hear my mess and my stress and my anxiety and my chaos and my crazy that's in my head, especially if you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs have, like you and I,
all the time,
brainstorm ideas like crazy. We have both found that our spouses get stressed out by us throwing our ideas out there. So we give the ideas to each other. So you need that release and outlet, but taking it home and thinking that, well, she's my partner, she should be able to receive this. Well, she doesn't. She's going to look at you and go, oh my God, like, are we about to lose everything? Or is it like, what's like there's this component of it where they worry, right? Versus
that's how they're built.
We're just spitballing ideas.
Yeah.
And my brain jumps from place to place to place to place as an entrepreneur, where I come up with, and you're the same way. We have all these different ideas and great strategies for making money, but we have to execute on something, so we don't do all those ideas. We just spit them out there, and they get stressed by that. They get overwhelmed by that. And I've heard more than one woman say that.
Yeah, it's learning to take what you need to the relationship, because again, you don't want to keep your wife in the dark. You don't want to keep your spouse in the dark. You want to keep them informed of where you're going, but you want to do it in a manner
controlled.
Yes, it's got to be controlled, because you don't. Again, I can go to my wife now and I can tell her I have a million ideas. You do, everyone does, right? And guys, I think we're constantly, because we're built this way, we're constantly looking for, it's the next meal, right? Yeah. Think about this when we were hunters out in the plains, right? We start out, so the men go out hunting. Right, so the women stay home, they look after the kids, they look after the village, a couple of men stay back to protect the village, right? We now leave the village. Our goal is we're going to go hunt a mammoth, right? We need food to bring back to there. In order to hunt the mammoth, we have to find the herd, right? We have to track the herd. We have to find the one we're going to get. We have to make a plan to get it. We have to then find. Those plans are going to change every second of every day. We have to find a new plan. We're doing the same thing, just the mechanisms will change.
Right.
So what we want to do is men's groups and sitting and having, it's men's support groups, but not support in the negative fashion. Because generally what men's support groups, and I'm going to say this, and sorry for the strong words, but it's about a bitch and moaning session.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
The support groups we're talking about is supporting each other in that positivity, in that wanting to move forward, right? You are allowed to come and go, I am struggling with this. Great. We will brainstorm. Let's find a way to get you out of it. Now it's on you to action. But if you're going to come back the next week, bitch about the same thing, and then next week, eventually we're going to say to you, listen, either shit in the pot or get off.
Yeah, my feeling with some of that is where, like, I had a guy that opened up to me about the ailments and the struggles and the setbacks and the victimness, if you will. And rather than validate it, I just responded with, okay, so what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And just got complete silence, right? And then they process it and realize, yeah, that's what I need to hear. And then they start to uncover their own footpath to get there.
We have to be very cognizant as men. What we cannot do is what's happened in our society, especially modern society, is we've created beta male men who are very happy to come and to bitch and moan and to act in ways. That's not a man.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not a man. You might have penis, you're not a man, because in order to call yourself a man, you have to first of all take accountability for the problem, realize what it is, and then take action.
Well, to me, another thing that men like, I hate to even use the word men with this, but like a lot of dudes go to the bar and commiserate at the bar about what's going on at home. And I've seen this firsthand where I know of people that would go sit at like Hooters or Wing House, or I think there's another like there's a few other ones, I can't remember the names of them, that are basically female waitresses with low-cut shirts, and they're sitting there drinking heavily, flirting with all these chicks, bitching and complaining about what's going on in their world. That's bullshit. That's not community.
No, what that is a bitching session, right? And what happens is this is the same as talk therapy as a space, as long as you're taking action to fix the underlying problem. But if you're just rehashing the problem over and over again, never taking action to fix it, what you're doing is you're becoming a victim.
I go to talk therapy still. I mean, it's actually been a few months since I've gone. And I've told you my model of talk therapy, which to me makes sense. You've said it makes sense too. But it's basically, I recognize half the time I go in there and create my own solution in the therapy. It's my outlet to go with a non-biased party, with a person that has heard my story for the last decade, that I don't have to start all over with telling my story when I go see him. Yeah. But he gives me sound advice as well. Yeah. But I also know that, like, in the end, this is an outlet for me. Yes. It's one of my tools. But
what's the most important part of that action?
That I took action.
That you actually took action. Because what happens is therapists they're there to listen. That's what they do. But they cannot take the action for you. Mm-hmm. You are responsible. So as soon as you take accountability, the next step is action.
And they give you tools too. Yeah. They have trained techniques and tools that they utilize. It's just like Helene. She's trained and she has all kinds of tools to help you like deal with certain things. Yes. And she did a group exercise with us last week that was amazing. It's the idea that like you're going to have shit. You're going to have things that you go through. I think generally speaking, a lot of people, especially the ones that we want to attract, most everything in their life is going pretty well. Mm-hmm. And there's some things that are just off, right? And
small things.
There's a small incremental changes that they want to make. So you may not be in this true deep dark state of life. Okay, we're going to get some of them. Yeah, there's going to be levels. But even in those people's lives, like I still think you need these tools because there's times of self-doubt. Well, that's a form of darkness. There's times of like struggling with like certain events that are going on that's going to be temporary, and you know it's temporary. That's a form of darkness. Yeah. Maybe you had a setback in business or a relationship or a child relationship. Like there's something that could be a setback that's going on, and you need to learn how to navigate those things. And again, tools to help you navigate them is what's important. Yeah, because we all face these things.
Well, the thing is, you make a great point there. Is inevitably death. Loss, age, changes in economy, changes in administration, changes in everything are going to happen regardless. You have no control over them.
Yes, right.
So these tools note that the reason you do the tools, even if you feel like, oh no, it's small changes, listen, you have the tools that are going to, when you really hit the bottom and you really hit the darkness, these tools are going to either help you just stay out of it, or they're going to help you deal with it, because the darkness could be losing your spouse.
That's right.
It could be something, there's nothing you can do about that. Death happens to everybody.
That's right.
And when that happens, you will have the tools to be able to mourn your spouse, be able to look at where you are and say, what's the next steps? And it's about giving the people the tools to be able to dig yourself out of the darkness, right? And then also realize that at some point, as you said, highs, lows, you're going to hit the lows. What's important is when you're at the highs to put in all those fundamental tools. Understand where they come from, do introspection, see where you are. And then once you're there, when you hit the lows, you're set, you know what to do. You have a toolbox that you can open up and you can start working on the problem and you can take steps forward. That's the fundamental, is the darkness, the failures, all of those are going to happen. They happen to all of us. And generally, if you want to become the best version of yourself, they happen because of those.
Right.
They allow you the mechanism to grow. Growth only happens in adversity. There's no such thing in the entire known universe. Action begets reaction. Right? In order to grow, regardless of what it is, you have to go through a set of adversity. Right? It does not exist outside of adversity, darkness, failure.
Totally.
So you want to almost look at those, and don't look at the word darkness is very negative, but it's positive to you. You're going to go through these things, and that's going to allow you to become the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and a final thought would be, like we spend a lot of, we don't spend a lot of time, but we're very conscious of not using negative connotated words, right? And darkness being one of those words that are, if you allow it to be negative, it is, but the harsh reality is, like, life is hard. Like, we all go through stuff. We all have setbacks, trials, errors, whatever. But you have to take those moments and treat them with gratitude. And it's like, again, the person that we're helping, the question that I asked, so what are you going to do about it? And then it was also followed by, once he gave me his plan, I basically said, well, you can be upset for what has been, or you can be grateful for the gift you were given, because you became awake because of that. Awake to your reality, awake to who you were, awake to your health. And one of the things that happened is, like, blood work was done and things were uncovered because of the blood work that was done that wouldn't have happened had this whole event not occurred. So you can have gratitude and be grateful for these things that come about. And that's the positivity, that's the mindset. And I'll share, like, a plug on the men's group that we're putting together. Yes, we have the online community, but we're also going to be doing an in-person community that's going to be a very small, very intimate group of men who are elite dudes that are really looking to get an edge. They're really looking to just be fucking wildly successful in their personal lives and business, and just have other dudes that they can lean on to share that success with. Because I'm excited for that group, not only from a place of, like, we're going to help people, but they're going to help us too.
Personal growth, man.
They're going to help us too.
Listen, you surround yourself with the people you want to be. Right? I like surrounding myself with people that have skill sets I don't, that are smarter in things that I don't know about,
100%.
And try and always elevate myself higher and higher and higher. And I feel this group provides us with that level of people. Right? We've got super young guys coming in who are starting out but have their own story. I mean, I'd like to get Colin Musso in here for a brief chat. This is a natural athlete who competes. He is insanely strong. He looks amazing. He's never taken anything in his life, right? And I'd like to sit down and just have a discussion with him and go, because he's got an insight of how he did things that may resonate with a lot of people. And then you've got guys like Adam Key who bring a amazing sense of building these wonderful businesses and have so much experience that still learn off us and we can learn off them. So there's this transfer of information which transcends age, it transcends where you've been, it transcends wealth. It's all funny, about where you are.
It's funny you bring Adam up just real quick. Like, I remember the first time seeing him come walk into the room, and the first time I heard him speak, I was like, that's a guy I want to get to know. Like, he just energy. Like, the energy is attracted. We talked attraction again. Like, that energy attracts, right? And it's the same, but it's vice versa. Like, he said the same about us. Like, that's a guy I want to get to know. And that energy is existent. It's put out there, and you find, like, hey, like I want to know more about that guy. I want to know what he's done, and he's wildly successful. And so if a guy like that wants to be a part of this, and just being in a room with more and more people like that, like
great experience.
That's gonna there's gonna be a lot of great things coming from this.
We'll form some of that, and we'll go in, and in this episode, in closing, take what we said is, if you are in that, and again, the depths of the darkness are different for everybody, right? It may be you might be going through a rough patch with your wife, might be a rough patch in your business. You might have lost everything, and you're sitting at the bottom of a hole. The good news is you're 100% capable of getting yourself out of it. But in order to do that, you have to first take accountability, and you have to look and decide what you really want, and you have to take action. Those actions are one piece at a time.
One final thought that we haven't said at all, as a veteran, I feel a responsibility of bringing this up. But if you're listening to this and you're contemplating taking your own life, don't do it. Don't ever fucking quit.
Yeah.
Phone a veteran, a friend. There's veteran helplines. Anybody, literally just get to tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I don't like alcohol, because I think a lot of veterans have taken their lives under the influence of alcohol. And I just would tell you, if you're listening to this and you're having thoughts of ending it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't quit. Keep fighting for one more day.
Yeah. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. I think that's a great place.